Sounds good.
Awesome, Cole. Well, thank you so much again for doing this interview and letting us learn more about Flyreel. I think I'll give you the ball, predominantly throughout this conversation. So why don't we kick this off and tell us, what is Flyreel and how did you all come about founding Flyreel, and tell us more about its mission.
Yeah, well, thanks for having me. For starters, Flyreel, we sell solutions directly to property insurers. And what we provide them is an AI assistant that can hold the hand and guide homeowners or business owners through their own property inspections. What this does is it helps them better understand the property to make sure that the insurance that they're offering is adequate to protect that policyholder and that it's priced appropriately. And today there just aren't ways to do this very efficiently. You have to send people out or do a best guess, wrangling third-party data. And that's roughly the problem that we've been aiming to solve.
Awesome. Why don't you tell us a bit more about why do we even do property inspections? When you're buying home insurance, why do home insurance companies even send someone out to inspect the property?
Yeah, well, I think that for the most part, inspections and just using data in the underwriting process is used to inform the price that you receive in terms of your premium outlay, but also the amount of coverage that's needed so that if something does happen, you can be brought back to normal, brought back to health, and that your property can be restored. And to date, a lot of that has been done through broad-based assumptions and risk pools. So because you live in the zip code, we assume you make this much money, you have this much in terms of contents in your home, you're just like your neighbor, and so we're going to give you this coverage. And it's kind of this close your eyes, do a best guess. Whereas now, we're afforded the opportunity through technology to know. We don't have to guess as much. And that's nice because no one's just like their neighbor, and they're paying for insurance. So if something bad happens, it can be fixed. And now it's a way to align expectations, but just do a better job at pricing and ensuring people are covered the way they wish and hoped they were.
Quick question around property inspections. This has been in the back of my head as I've been doing the research. Are all properties inspected when they go through the quote and bind process, or are only certain properties inspected?
Just certain properties for the most part. What we see across our customers is that usually they'll look at attributes, maybe the date that a home was built, and if it was built in the 80s or earlier, let's do an inspection. Maybe the plumbing is outdated. Maybe the electrical is outdated. So there are attributes that trigger inspections. What we've found, though, is that by now having the luxury of seeing inside those homes at a broader scale, those assumptions of when should we look are being challenged. It used to be, let's look at all the homes built before the 80s. And now it's, no, we've got some risk in even the earlier homes. And so they're expanding the properties that they look at because they can. But typically they take a cohort of the PIF in their policies and then they inspect those ones.
Awesome. So just to play some of that back. So theoretically, if you make it easier to do property inspections, you enable insurance companies to do more property inspections.
Right. Yeah, I think everyone, if they could have a thorough interior and exterior inspection of every property they insure, they would love to, right? But it's just never been possible until recently.
Awesome. Why don't you talk a bit about how the homeowner actually uses Flyreel to model the interior and exterior of the home? Do you do both? Yes. Interior and exteriors?
Yeah, we do. We do both interior and exterior. And the typical flow is that they receive an email and or a text message that says, hey, Harry, we need to do an inspection. Download this app, put in your code. It's going to take 15, 20 minutes. And then from there, they download the app, they put in the code. The app is white labeled for the carrier, just like their experience. And a chatbot actually engages in a conversation with them. And we call it the property assistant. So the property assistant holds their hand and it'll say, hey, Harry, let's go into the backyard, pan across the backyard. Oh, I saw a pool, but I haven't seen a fence yet. Do you have a fence? And would you mind telling me if you have a self-locking gate, taking a photo of that too? Mm-hmm. And so this chatbot, it's guiding them through scanning the areas that the insurance carrier needs to see to provide coverage and price it. And it's also reacting based on what it sees or it doesn't see. So if it detects something that maybe we should have a follow-up question about, like that pool, when the computer vision, the technology that we provide detects that, then that whole conversation is going to change in real time and adapt just like a human inspector would. And from there, the data gets organized in a really structured way, goes directly into the insurance provider's backend system to then help them price and determine eligibility.
Awesome. Before we talk about the various players involved here, how do you all make money?
Every time one of those inspections gets completed, Flyreel earns our business, and if it doesn't get done or it's not adequate, we're not charging.
What do you mean by if it's like not adequate? Like if they fall out of the flow, or if
exactly, yeah. Some people, maybe they'll start and then never complete it. Only when it's completed do we actually charge.
So curiously, I mean, so like let's talk about like the various stakeholders like in the system. So you have the insurance carrier, and then you also have like the homeowner. You know, why, in theory, like wouldn't the carrier want to like force the homeowner down the funnel in this scenario? Like why would they drop off?
Yeah, I think that there's been a lot of uncertainty, and less so now, about asking homeowners or customers to do anything, right? So if you look at the maturity of insurtech over the past few years, initially everyone was just focused on this one-click, you have insurance type of experience, and that has its pros and it has its cons. And the cons are, adequately providing coverage and at the right price, and the pros are customer doesn't have to do much at all. But it was predicated on this notion that customers want speed over quality and coverage, and that they need the fastest experience to be happiest. And what we're learning now, just through experience, and also COVID helped us learn with this, is that homeowners, business owners are willing to be good partners. They'll give you 15, 30 minutes of their time to make sure that their business is protected, that their home is protected. And so early on, there was hesitation from carriers about forcing this, requiring it, even sending it, because they didn't want to project work onto the customer. But those customers, during our research, they would scan their home, and then afterwards they'd say, a pretty common question was, how did my insurance provider know how much coverage I needed and what the price should be if they've never seen my home? And the answer was they don't really know. And that makes them super uneasy. So it's just been, early on, I think people hesitated to use this type of technology. Now they're far more open. We're seeing our customers get much more forward and kind of advocating for self-inspection and the messaging around it, like requiring it. But that's been an evolution, and I think it makes sense. It makes a lot of sense.
In theory, if you have more accurate, data, more accurate like modeling of like the home, and you could see, people's like rates go up, right? Mm-hmm. And do the homeowners like understand that when they want to, be ultra transparent, or how do they kind of balance that?
Yeah, so a couple things. The rates go up and the rates go down and the rates stay the same. We see it all. And so we'll see discounts provided because they thought they had more contents than they did. And then we'll see rates go up because they found a detached garage that wasn't accounted for. And in situations where the rates go up, it's not, hey, boom, here's a bill. Our carriers deliver a pretty good experience around this, where typically the flow is, hey, Harry, we didn't know you had a detached garage before. To get that covered, it's going to be a little bit more. Do you want to make sure that's covered? Well, yeah. And so that's going to be $10 extra or $100 extra, whatever it is. There's typically in the messaging a direct correlation between a price increase and you getting the coverage that you actually want. And so doesn't end up being a negative thing as much as it is in alignment of expectations. You probably already thought this was covered. They didn't know you had it. Now they do. So they're proactively telling you they didn't know. And so we've got to adjust the price accordingly.
Awesome. I actually really like that educational component, because when you have someone at like the final quote stage, you don't want them dropping off.
Right.
And then on the insurance carrier side, theoretically, they're getting more accurate data to better price their policies. How do they know if you're doing a good job?
Yeah, so usually what happens is our customers will look to some extent at the reports that we're generating for them. In the end, they come in two forms. We generate a PDF and a report just like an inspector does today, but also we'll fill their backend systems filling out forms automatically. So with some review, they'll look at these reports and they make sure that everything's flowing through exactly the way that it should. At this point, we've done thousands of these, and to the extent that the accuracy of our models and more it's very good. We also have a quality assurance step because AI is always only going to be so good. I'm not too concerned about it taking over the world right now, as we're trying to help it delineate between a computer monitor and a television screen, right? Those are hard problems. And so we do have people that will review some of our reports just to guarantee and ensure that accuracy by the time it hits the customer's door.
Yeah. Do you like report back like holistic metrics back to your carriers at all? Yeah, saying like, hey, on average using Flyreel, your policy prices go down 10%, or they go up 10% because we have captured better data in this respect.
Similar, we do provide a pretty robust analytics package. It's not that specific example. I will tell you what we do provide. What we've learned is running a self-inspection program, there's labor and management associated with it. And so we've inherited that for our customers. So, you have email distribution and tracking open rates and who gets stalled. And do we remind them to pick it up? They're halfway through. How do we coach them through the last part? Live in-app support, all of that stuff. So what we deliver to our customers is an analytics package that tracks everything from invitation to email open and clicks to starting the inspections, when, how long it took them, what was their review of the process, were they frustrated, did they contact support, if so, how many times, because we're constantly improving that user experience and we have to have ground truth data to know if we're falling short somewhere. A good example is, there early on, we would ask people to go into the service area of their home and scan their hot water heater, right? Well, what's a service area? And so people would contact support. What is the service area? And so we would adjust the language and improve that experience. In terms of the metrics you were alluding to earlier, the business value, the business impact, we can't on our own provide that data to the carrier. That happens through a partnership. So what they'll do typically is we surface critical risks and hazards in 30% of the properties that get scanned. And what we'll ask for is any insight around the last mile of that. What happened from those 30%? Did you re-underwrite, change the pricing? Did you cancel? What were the results? And so our customers do share that back to us so that we know we're delivering value to them. Last thing we'd ever want to do is charge for something if we're not delivering an excess value there.
Awesome. Shifting gears a bit, y'all raised a $10 million Series A back in November from IA Capital as well as Guidewire, I believe.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
What's the plan with the new capital? You know, what y'all looking at, you know, over the next 1 to 2 to 5 years?
Yeah. So, early on, we were in that stage where we're trying to prove out an idea, and Google's AI fund, Gradient Ventures, backed our seed financing and helped us achieve that opportunity and pursue that opportunity. So then, after we proved out this is a viable idea, now we're going through that scale phase. What we found is we went from 6 carriers to 15 to now over 25 across over 30 accounts. And we're going through a pretty healthy growth period. So that Series A was to support the growth, but also we hadn't yet developed a sales team. And so now we've stood up a sales team and we're building out our business, not just the technology, but the business around it. And that's where that capital is being allocated.
I have a few questions around the sales team. And that kind of goes back also to, I guess, who some of the stakeholders are. First off, how is selling to insurance companies? A B2B software product like this?
Yeah, it's long, but it's important to do it well. I think that you're dealing with large amounts of data, sensitive data, huge organizations, and everyone needs to be up to speed to make this all very successful. But also workflows, some of them have been in place for decades, and now they have to evolve. So that all makes sense. And so the sales cycles are long, but it's logical. I wish they were faster. In some cases, I'm amazed. Some groups move considerably quicker than others. But I would summarize it by saying it's long.
Yeah. Do you have any tips? Have you learned anything about, as you've gone through selling to insurance companies?
Yeah, I think depending on the audience, I would have different tips. We made maybe some novel moves in terms of our staffing, where we brought on our own general counsel as a startup and our own CISO as a startup. And this is when we're 10 people. And that's absurd in most cases. People don't have their own attorney in-house, and they don't have their own CISO. But when you go through the security requirements, the procurement process with these carriers, satisfying the architectural and infrastructural needs for security, but also adhering to and reviewing the long MSAs, it makes a lot of sense. And that having those in-house accelerates that sales cycle because that upfront process gets compressed considerably. And then the other piece is really just creating those materials in advance, right? Your security handbook, your policies, and more. I think a lot of people are making that up as they go. And in doing so, they do it 10, 15 times as they start to get more carriers. I think slow is fast, and fast can be slow in that context. And so taking some time to methodically establish your stance to expedite that procurement process is a huge advantage.
Awesome. Backing up like one moment, because I think this is a clarifying question I have. What type of entities do you sell to? Like, is it only carriers? Do you sell to MGAs? Where does Flyreel plug in?
Yeah, most of our customers are the insurance carriers. We do have some MGA customers, and now what we've learned is that the data that we provide, its value extends beyond insurance. And so we have some folks in the real estate space and other kind of ancillary or adjacent markets that are now coming on board as customers as well.
Well, you're kind of skipping ahead to some of my future.
Sorry about that.
Future questions. I mean, why we can we can hop right on there.
Sure.
So you have this technology, you have this purchase flow, and you know the immediate spot that you are starting out with is insurance, and you're acquiring data on properties, both interior and exterior. What are some of the other, as you said, as you noted before, adjacent ancillary places that you can utilize this tech for?
Yeah, well, I'll asterisk this with, our focus has been in insurance because we just want to do a great job there before we go anywhere else. I think in insurance, we're now progressing there into other use cases, but in terms of adjacent market opportunities, at the end of the day, what we have in our view is arguably one of the more advanced data capture solutions for property that's available. It can guide you through a full interior exterior scan, automatically identify attributes, features, risks, and more. So you can see that something like that could add considerable value in the realm of appraisals, other types of inspections, and even in real estate, more of those home inspections, the mortgage inspections, commercial loan inspections. All of that is definitely within the realm of possibility, I think, for our solution. And being intelligent about when and how we attack those opportunities is wise. The last thing we want to do is compromise our focus and delivery. But we're pretty excited about kind of the future of Flyreel and where we can go with it.
Awesome. And then one of my final topics I want to hit on is, where does Flyreel sit, in comparison to like other property data capture platforms that exist out there? Because there's lots of different kinds, and they're all utilized by insurance carriers at different parts. So curious to hear your take and your breakdown of the space.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of amazing solutions out there, and we play, in my view, a unique role in that ecosystem. So what you'll see if you categorize them is first, your third-party property data providers. So people getting mortgage, real estate, county and tax record data, claims history. Those are kind of your data providers. And then you also have your measurement solutions, right? And so you have Hover on the exterior, Planner on the interior. You have Matterport doing a bit of the interior as well. And so, then you get into, who's able to provide the full interior and exterior. And that's where we differentiate ourselves. In addition, we haven't seen someone detecting through computer vision the features, the condition, the materials, the way that we are to support that underwriting use case. So, each of those tools has their play and their appropriate use. That's roughly the bucket we reside in, is that full interior, exterior understanding with risks and hazards, materials, objects, and more. And that's how we differ from the other groups out there.
Yeah, so we did a profile on Hover about a month or two ago, and they focus on primarily external property measurement. Do carriers see your solution and a measurement solution like Hover or a Planner to be mutually exclusive or complementary?
I would say complementary. In a number of cases with our customers, they are using basically a suite of tools. And so we see those are exceptional companies, by the way, both of those companies. And so you'll see Hover used in claims for exterior, Planner used in claims for interior, Flyreel used for underwriting inspections, renewal inspections. And I think, the carriers do desire a holistic ecosystem. I think where, more and more of that functionality resides on with a single provider. But in any case, we've found that it's complementary more than anything.
Yeah, I think that's actually like a solid distinction, where hover is primarily used on the claim side and you're primarily used on the underwriting side. Because for the most part, in larger carriers, very separate organizations.
Yes. Oh, yeah. And sometimes even businesses. Yes. Yeah.
And then this is just a quick backtrack as well, back to the market opportunity. Because often when I feel like I'm looking at the insurance space, it tends to be kind of like myopic on the US market, but a B2B solution like yours isn't as hindered by regulation. Down the line, do you see kind of like global expansion plans? And then if there's any unique things with the US market versus non-US markets?
Yeah, we definitely see opportunities for expansion. We've actually gone into Canada already. And that was a pretty natural and organic expansion for us. There's a lot of US carrier overlap with Canada. Mm-hmm. And now, there are other areas, UK, Europe, Australia, and others that I think are great places to go. In terms of the technical ability to do that, any differences across those countries, there are some differences as you get into the makeup of the home. Different appliances, oftentimes in more of the European setting, you'll see home appliances that have almost like a faux wood covering over the refrigerator, so it blends in with the cabinetry, which changes your approach, I think, on some of the things in terms of your computer vision technology. But for the most part, there's a lot of those core attributes. Wood burning stoves are wood burning stoves, and when you see them, they present some risk. And so there's a little bit of translation, and there's more required for some countries than others, right? Canada, very similar footprint to the US, Australia also. And so gradually I see ourselves extending in those directions.
And then this is a naive question on my end. Do carriers and other countries, operate, via a similar system as US carriers?
I think that it's similar there in that some do and plenty don't. I think the maturity of our underwriting processes here in the US, it's pretty good compared, I think, to others where you have far less coverage in the event something happens and far less data to inform the assignment of that coverage. And there are countries, though, that operate similarly, and those are good entry points for Flyreel.
That's awesome. Well, Cole, that was the extent of my questions. We hit on all the topics I wanted to hit on. I just want to say, thank you for doing this interview, and looking forward to get this published.
Yeah, thanks so much. I appreciate it.
I'm going to stop recording right now.